Hello and welcome to PJ Does Life. I'm PJ, this is me doing life. Spirituality. I've always had trouble with this term. Whether it's monks in a monastery, the Beatles writing Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, or a gap year student getting an Om tattoo on a beach in Bali, I've always had the same thought. What exactly is spirituality? In the secular world, it's undoubtedly been on the rise. Yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, mindfulness. They're all very fashionable again. So a couple of years ago, I had an incredible experience. After being on a quest to discover the self for a number of years, I was leaving the tube at Oxford Circus one day, and as I reached the top of the stairs, an enormous switch went off in my head. All of a sudden, the top left side of my head, that's how I sort of remember it, suddenly became clear. It was like somebody had gone into a messy, smelly, dusty, dank bedroom and opened the window, and suddenly the vacuum had sucked everything out, leaving only a pristinely tidy and light-flooded room. It was amazing. But the most amazing thing was that for the first time in my life, I stopped thinking. All the cliches you imagine were there. Suddenly the world looked extraordinarily beautiful, all colours were vibrant. I suppose it must have been that all my attention was focused 100% on my surroundings. So my mind was no longer crazy active. And I found that when I thought, I could think. But when I wanted to stop thinking, I could do that as well. I could choose whether to think. So my mind had become a tool rather than the master, which it had been for years. And I hadn't felt so happy. I didn't feel the need to do anything. I didn't feel the need to go anywhere. I was simply happy being. I remember my colleague at work said to me, "You seem to be floating somehow," and I had no response. So I stayed in this state for a week or more, right? A blissful continuity of contentment. Living in a world where everything is extraordinarily beautiful all the time is a great way to be. And the freedom from thinking was overwhelmingly magnificent. If you've ever wondered whether it's really possible to be completely free from thoughts, and have this perfect silence occupy your being, well, I'm here to tell you it is. I've been there. But even after having experienced this, right, and believe me, what I've just said, no words can do it justice. I still couldn't call it a spiritual experience because I saw no reason to bring in this other world, because it was still me, still there, but just on a different, on a higher level of consciousness, I suppose, but a supreme level. The problem is that I felt forced by our culture into this dichotomy. I have to evaluate the experience in one of two ways, right? Either I change the chemistry of my brain to a different reaction, or I was touched by the Holy Spirit coming down from the other realm. And I didn't feel happy about this choice, but without any other options, I had to go for the former, because the experience must have been a delusion, or the rest of my life was a delusion maybe, and that was the clarity. But either way, I was just a ball of chemistry doing what chemistry does. That's what I had to go with. See, and this is the problem with our culture, the culture of separation. Either spirituality means touching some other plane or astral dimension of existence, which I've never really bought into, or it just means nothing and is pure nonsense. What does it mean to be spiritually whole, anyway? Until recently, I didn't know any better. I couldn't really say. Some people find it shocking when I say to them that civilization is built on a foundational belief of separation, and will declare, "Nonsense!" because it's such a sweeping statement. But it's approaching the proverbial fish in the bowl and telling him he's swimming in water. It's very hard to see it until you pick it apart bit by bit. So what is it to be spiritually fulfilled? I'll throw around some ideas. Self-knowing, self-accepting, at peace, quiet mind, living in the moment, contentment, calm, free from desire or want, a feeling of connection with your surroundings, a feeling of place in your world, silence, absence of words, absence of thoughts, you see? But I think adding mysticism to and like the supernatural into these qualities doesn't add to them and actually takes a lot away. It's true that these qualities are extremely rare in our culture, because no culture which is content with itself and peaceful of mind would bother flying to the moon or inventing iPads or the internet. But there are a few left in the world who seem to be, a few cultures who seem to be spiritually fulfilled, although to them being either spiritually fulfilled or spiritually unfulfilled would have no meaning. It's just a meaningless dichotomy. The best you could describe them is that they just like are, you know. In the continuing concept that I talked about before, Jean Liedloff describes tribal cultures that we would describe as spiritually fulfilled, happy, content, creative, nowhere to be, nowhere to go. We would say in the moment. But why are they so? See, I believe the answer lies in evolution. Evolution has guided us, shaped us. It's set in us like a number of expectations, which all animals, apart from civilized humans and like domesticated animals that we've created, seem happy to fulfill. And don't forget at this point that civilization, as we call it, is only really, really recent. It's just a small blip on the scale of human history. Just the last 10,000 years or so in the at least 1 million odd year human history. So only the last 1% at most, right, is civilization. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors fulfilled the needs of evolution. Bonding with the parents, needs responded and met, connection fulfilled. And as connection to the family unit is fulfilled, so is the connection to the world. One mirrors the other, they go hand in hand. So I think of spirituality in purely evolutionary terms. Spirituality means having your evolutionary needs and expectations met. And lacking spirituality means you don't. But given that we're all brought up with a number of these like foundational cultural doctrines from birth, it's not surprising that most of us are not connected with our world and do not feel a part of our planet. The idea that man is separate from nature, that there are two worlds, the spirit world and the material world, or that there is only this dead material world which happened by accident, that separation from our parents leads somewhere to independence, that empathy must be taught rather than just actually appear, and that who we are is based on everything apart from who we are, like what we do. The idea that we're separate beings also, rather than intimately interconnected and interdependent expressions of energy. All these and other false cultural beliefs of separation, they've stacked up and accumulated in the cultural psyche for millennia, passed down from one generation to another over thousands of years, to the point where they're so assumed that their veracity is never really questioned. And we're left dealing with the slew of effects and never dealing with the actual cause. The exponential accumulation of all this bullshit demands one thing: a total cleaning out, like the proverbial room in the top left side of my brain, which I described at the beginning. See, the real truth, is that we'll learn far more by looking at tribal cultures and other primates even, than we ever will by any amount of study, academic study, scientific research into raising our young. The reason for this is that evolution has built into our beings the necessary needs. We have everything we need built in, and it also builds in the means of meeting those needs. The only trouble is that as a culture, we've been so deeply conditioned into ignoring our instincts in favour of the experts that we perpetuate this cycle of fucked up individuals aimlessly floating in these isolated bags of skin on an isolated planet in an isolated universe. And these are the same people who become the experts. And I wonder then why the vicious cycle is continued. To escape the cycle, we have to look beyond our minds, beyond our thoughts, beyond our indoctrinations, and to the inescapable truth, really, of evolution. By their fruits shall you know them, like Jesus said. So look at the iguana, look at other tribal cultures, look at other primates. See how they toil, see how they struggle, see how much conflict there is inside their minds and therefore outside in their worlds, and compare it to us. And ask yourself this question. Who's remained in line with their evolution and with their evolutionary needs? Who are content? Who have fallen from grace by choosing the infantile idiocy of thoughts over the ancient wisdom of evolution? To be spiritually fulfilled means to be evolutionary fulfilled. To return to our state of well-being, we have to break free from the indoctrination, from the mud of ideology, which we never even question, and actually fulfill our evolutionary needs, connection, everything else. Because the results of abandoning them are all around us. Our salvation lies in reconnecting with these and getting back to what evolution has left us, the legacy of evolution. That's what I believe is true spiritual fulfillment. Alright, I'm PJ. Now go and do life.